distorted our tax system.
Sir William CO.
I've been here since 11 o'clock fighting tooth and nail for an opportunity to speak, and I've seen off two other chairmen, and you're the first one who has given me this opportunity to speak at such an important debate. And so I'm happy to now make my contribution to the first and second clause. First clause, of course, being the title of this legislation, the second clause being referring to the commencement of the legislation. Subclause 2 of that commencement part refers to the family tax credit, family tax abatement changes that will take place. Subclause 6 refers to the tax credit being cut in half, and I will want to make detailed references to that in the course of my contribution. But I do want to reflect, sir, a little bit before I get into the detail that some years ago I met a gentleman from Africa. He worked in the national parks of saving animals, saving very beautiful animals, elephants, rhinoceros. And he was somebody who valued the protection of these particularly large animals. And I said to them, because the problem was there was a lot of poaching, etc. I said to him, how do you destroy one of these beautiful animals? And he said, the poachers use one bullet or one slash, but generally a bullet to the head or a bullet to the heart, and they allow the animal to bleed to death. They allow the animal to bleed to death, sir. And I want to use that analysis to what is happening now here with KiwiSaver and to the Working for Families credits. What we're seeing from this government here in the introduction of their budget, instead of giving confidence to those on KiwiSaver, those who are not on KiwiSaver, instead of giving confidence to families who have children and are struggling to make ends meet, this legislation, sir, destroys every shred of confidence that those families have now into the future. I want to draw your attention, sir. I don't know whether you've seen this cartoon in the New Zealand Herald a couple of days ago, but in it, it's a character of what looks to be Bill English and what looks to be John Key, both of them half naked in a pool of what looks like to be dirty water. And Mr. English is saying, this is by far my favourite economic stimulus policy. And Mr. Key responding, mine too. And then this is the quote I want to draw your attention to. You can look awfully busy doing bugger all. And that's what this government is doing. They're looking busy doing bugger all for the economy, doing bugger all for this, for the families of our nation. And so I would suggest, sir, that the title clause, instead of calling it the Taxation Annual Rates and Budget Measures Act, they should be calling National's Bugger All Budget Act. That's what it should be.
Point of order, Dr. Paul Hutchison.
Describing whether that emanation that was repeated on many occasions from the member from Mangere was actually parliamentary?
I'll thank the member for his intervention. To use the word that you did and describe it as a title of a bill is unacceptable, so don't do it again. Sir William CO.
Thank you, sir. I was merely quoting from the New Zealand Herald article here. Let me take the House back a bit, sir. Let me take the House back a bit. In 9 years, when Labour was in government, we operated in surplus. And why? Because we had a finance minister who knew how to manage the economy, who had a plan, wasn't fixated on one particular part of the economy, but had an overall plan. We had a fair tax system. We had a fair tax system in which everybody from low income to high income paid their fair share. From 19.5%, 33% between 40 and 60, and 39% on. We had a targeted approach to ensure that we invested in education, to ensure that we invested in early childhood centres, to ensure that we invested in health. When things began to loom about the overall high cost of food, we then introduced working for families, because that was a way to help working for families help them through the difficult times. When we recognized that there was a need for savings, sir, we then introduced KiwiSaver. The point I'm making, sir, both working for families, KiwiSaver, are so important to this nation. Evidence of this is the 1.7 million people who have signed up to it. Mr. Chair, Mr. Chair, Mr. Chair.
I'm going to call David Shearer. Order. Before I call David Shearer, before I call you, I have called you, but before you speak, just remind members we're on clauses 1 and 2, and this is a peroration of what has happened in the debate. It's not an opportunity to bring new material into the debate. We're talking specifically here a summary of parts 1 and 2 in relation to title and commencement. David Shearer.